Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
Happy Monday morning to you. Happy Columbus Day. Brian Eaman, Brian Wilson with you. 6:07 on WMAL. Got Trevor Maddich coming up in 2 hours. We'll talk about the Redskins and RG3's mild concussion, the team calls it.
Yeah, what day is it, Robert? I don't think you could answer that even this morning.
Joe DeGenova, our legal expert, will be here in the 7 o'clock hour, as well as former Ambassador John Bolton. We'll talk about Mitt Romney's big foreign policy speech at VMI later today. Peter Morici joins us now, economist, University of Maryland professor. Good morning, Peter. How are you?
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
So let's get right to the jobs numbers that were released Friday, and then the fallout from the tweets heard around the world from Jack Welch, the former head of GE, who at least gave the impression that he didn't think those numbers were accurate and that it probably was somehow inflated by the Department of Labor. Do you think that Jack Welch has a case on that, or is he just out to lunch?
He's out to lunch, unless he can show me evidence. But the BLS is structured not to be influenceable by political officials. It's just not structured that way. This is an example of somebody who was a great physicist and then starts making proclamations about social policy. Or when we get Jane Fonda on The Tonight Show to talk about foreign policy. He just isn't qualified to be talking about
but
this.
He is a former CEO of one of the biggest companies
That's right.
in
and
America.
I'm a professor of business at the University of Maryland, and I would make a lousy general manager for the Washington Redskins. I mean, it's just not the same thing, period.
Well, let me ask you this, though, question, if I could, Dr. Morici. We can
go back to calling me Peter, okay?
All right, Peter. Here's my question. Okay, I might agree with you that it's a stretch to suggest these numbers were manipulated. But the thing that I keep coming back to is those numbers never really ever on any given day, and they haven't for at least the last 25 or 30 years that I know of, they have not actually reflected what's going on in America.
Well, no, that last 25 or 30 years, no, it's more like the last 25 or 30 months. America is going through profound changes because we have an incompetent administration bent on turning us into sort of a Czech Republic, a slow-growing European state where people get lots of free health care and can ride electric trains to their doctor and don't really have very good jobs. I mean, for several decades now, Europe has been riddled by high unemployment and an absence of opportunities for young people.
But hold on. I got to understand something, Peter.
The U.S. labor market,
Peter,
is older people. Hold on, I'm going to give you the disconnect. When older people lose their jobs over the last couple of years, they have tended to live off savings. Younger people, when they couldn't find a job after graduating college, tended to go to graduate school, borrow money to do that. Those effects are going away, and those people are now taking whatever might be available.
All right, but
so there was a huge jump in part-time work. Also, the wages being paid in new jobs are dramatically lower than the old jobs that were lost. So the numbers are up in terms of actual people employed, as they described, but the quality of those jobs is not very good. The other thing that people don't understand is that it is a survey based on a limited number of people, and as a consequence, you get a lot of up and down from month to month. And last month, there seems to have been some sort of catch-up on the household data that measures unemployment.
All right,
that's all that happened.
All right, I understand all that. I guess my larger point is, at a certain point, if you're out there looking for work and you can't get work, you sort of get taken out of the equation. So it's not really an accurate reflection, I guess is what I'm saying. Isn't it true that it's not a real accurate portrayal of what the real situation is, and it doesn't really categorize or capture the real number of people out there who are without jobs? And isn't that what an unemployment number is supposed to be?
Read my two columns last week, one at Fox and the other at CNBC, one the day before and that day, in which I write about that. The unemployment rate, if we had the same percentage of adults participating today in the labor market as we did when Mr. Obama became president, the unemployment rate would be 10.7%. When the unemployment rate peaked in October 2009, it was 10%. If we had the same percentage of people working today, looking for work today as we did then, the unemployment rate would be 9.7%. most of the improvement in the unemployment rate has been people quitting the labor force. The reason we saw this jump last month is we're starting to see a reversal of that. It's very small, but people are sort of taking part-time work, and they're taking very undesirable work. So this is why we have this disconnect between this alleged progress and this terrible feeling people have in the labor market. I mean, for the President of the United States to be running around and saying things are getting better when 50% of college graduates can't find a job that by any reasonable stretch uses their education is just absolute nonsense.
All right, so we have also a problem with gasoline prices are very high right now. They're over $5.
Well, when you have a policy that doesn't drill on 80% of the resources available in the United States, even though you're one of the most energy-rich country in the world, let me put it to you this way. It would be like the Washington Nationals not only sitting down Strasburg, but sitting down there 4 starting pitchers and expecting to win the World Series. This is why we have a huge trade deficit. This is why we're not growing. I mean, this is one of the basic structural problems that Mr. Obama refuses to correct. See, he doesn't like oil companies. It's a visceral dislike. It's almost like a racial bias. I mean, every time he gets a chance to talk about the economy, he slaps the back of the head of the oil companies. They pay huge amounts of taxes. They're an enormous contributor to the U.S. economy, and they could help us get out of this mess if he would get off his high horse. The other one is his weak knees when it comes to China. Now we find that for months and months and months, the administration has been afraid to say the Japanese telecom companies are pirating American technology and in conducting national security espionage. Now we're going to have a House committee today that will release a report that tells them flat out it is. That's something the Justice Department and Eric Holder should have been on, but are not. Instead they're strip searching us at airports. That's the problem. When you have a president with such obsessions and biases, he makes Peter Morici look like a calm man. Maybe not in demeanor, but intellectually. Did you see the absolute disdain he exhibited for Romney's comments during the debate? Not only doesn't he listen to critics, he thinks they're cynical and divisive.
Well, so it sounds like you're going to be voting for Barack Obama for 4 more years then.
Well, I want to change the Constitution so we can have him forever. I mean, he almost behaves like a Latin American dictator. I mean, look at the way we got the health care.
So all of this, and go back to our first comment where you think that there's no possible way that these numbers could be cooked in favor of the president.
I don't think so.
I know. I believe you. I'm just saying that you understand why there's that.
To cover up. No, listen. You're talking to someone who's run a large economics operation inside the government, who collected statistics and so on and so forth.
But
the way the BLS is set up, if you put your hand in, you'd get caught.
Yeah, but hold on. But this is sort of my larger point. The reason people are suspicious of the number is because the number doesn't reflect reality.
But
because
how that can happen.
Yeah, I understand all that. But I mean, what I'm saying is why don't we have an unemployment number that comes from the BLS that actually reflects our honest situation on the ground?
Use 6 different unemployment numbers, and U6 takes into consideration. Remember, it's hard to measure who sat down. Because
but that's not what they're talking about on the campaign trail. They're talking about 7.8. That's the number that people seize upon.
That's the number the media focuses.
That's right. I was going to say, the media could play a role here, especially CNBC and Fox Business.
I've been highlighting U6, which includes those adults who say they would look for work if conditions were better, and those adults working part-time but would prefer full-time work and can't get it.
Right.
That's at 14.7%.
Wow.
Exactly. And I put that in my press releases, just about every bloody month. Go back and look.
Well, I get it, but I guess the thing I'm frustrated by is that a lot of other people don't focus on that. We all ought to listen to Morici. That's my goal. Morici has the answers. That's always.
Anyway, but that's why, the thing is the BLS does collect that information. But you have to remember, this is an art, not a science, in terms of expressing, what is reality for 300 million people with a few numbers.
All right, Peter. We got to leave it right there. Peter Morici, thank you.